In the United States, 1 in 3 homes have mold. Additionally, 10% of the nation's homes could have serious mold problems. Well, that's 1 out of every 10 homes. A survey conducted by OSHA, that's the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, indicates that 1/3 of the 70 million Americans who work indoors are in buildings that are potential breeding grounds for molds. Now, that can be a real risk to the health of the people living or working in these buildings. Concern about indoor exposure to mold has increased as the public has become more aware that mold can cause a variety of health effects and symptoms, including allergic reactions, headaches, memory loss, and skin conditions. Molds produce chemicals called mycotoxins and VOCs, volatile organic compounds. These may cause illness in people who are sensitive to them. People with asthma, allergies, respiratory problems, and immune deficiencies may experience a degree of distress because of the presence of mold in their environment. Now, I'm a Duraclean franchise owner, and it's my job to make your indoor environment safer and as mold-free as possible. Fungi, mold, mildew, and microbial contamination are different ways of referring to the same natural organisms. These microbes are nature's way of getting rid of dead organic material. They're simple microscopic parasites whose purpose in the ecosystem is to break down dead materials. Molds can be found on plants, among dry leaves, pretty much on almost every organic material. Some molds are useful, such as those used to make antibiotics and cheese. Others are known to be highly toxic when ingested, like the ones that invade grains and peanuts. There are more than 100,000 known species of mold, and at least 1,000 species of these are prevalent in the U.S. A mold floats around in the air looking for a moist area with a food supply and the proper temperature. They can grow on virtually any substance as long as moisture and an organic food source are present. 2 of the most common fungi are Penicillium and Aspergillus. Both are found in areas where water damage has occurred, and both can be toxic under the right conditions. Another common mold, Cladosporium, is usually found in outdoor air, but it can also be found in dirty refrigerators, on moist window frames, and areas where there's poor air circulation. But one of the most common fungi is Stachybotrys. This fungi appears as a black growth on drywall. It can be found behind baseboards and on subfloors. This mold has been associated with health issues, and it can become a significant problem. People can come in contact with mold in several ways. The first way is to simply handle contaminated material. Another way to come in contact with mold is to damage or disturb the surface. When that happens, spores, the microscopic seeds of the mold, become airborne. People then inhale or ingest spores. The problem is not just the mold and its spores, but the level of exposure that can occur inside the confined environment of our homes and workplaces. To make these places safe, we need to control the levels of microbes by limiting their growth inside where we live and work. When a building becomes contaminated with mold, it presents several issues to the property owner. The first issue is the effect on the people who occupy the property. Hopefully, the contamination is isolated and will not interfere with daily activities or impact the health of occupants. Second, the property owner must determine how the contamination will impact the economic viability of the property. Remediation does have a price tag, but the costs associated with the loss of productivity, potential liabilities due to health issues, and reduction to the value of the property may be substantially greater than the cost of remediation. Another issue arises if the property is up for sale or rent. Mold can become a deal breaker. The cost of losing a sale or a long-term renter pales by comparison to the cost of getting rid of the mold contamination properly. Mold isn't just unsightly. It also causes property damage. It causes the deterioration of most organic materials. It can destroy paper, cloth, and wood, and it can stain just about any material known to man. In addition to visible problems, the presence of mold indicates that moisture is present and water damage is likely. And since mold thrives where moisture and an organic food source is plentiful, 2 things must happen for us to be able to control it. First, we must remove the source of the moisture. Good maintenance and quick repair are key to controlling moisture. And secondly, the mold and its spores must be removed from the inside environment. This means that any material that has mold growing on it has to be removed and thoroughly cleaned. This can be costly, but not taking care of mold can cost a whole lot more. While cost of mold damage to property can be very high, the cost from a liability point of view can be even higher. As a property owner, nothing can be taken for granted when it comes to the legal liability for mold contamination. Visitors, customers, and employees could have adverse health reactions if mold contamination were to occur. Timely and proper response to mold damage is the best way to limit any potential legal actions. If you suspect that you have a mold problem, we recommend that you document everything that is said or done regarding the mold. The first thing that needs to be done is to determine the severity of the problem. Visible mold is easy to spot, but that may not be all the mold growing in a given location. If you're going to do your own inspection, you need to look for areas of dampness and water damage. Remember, mold must have a source of moisture to grow. Obvious signs of water damage or water stains should be considered potential mold growth areas. You need to look in the rooms that contain running water, such as bathrooms, kitchens, and laundry rooms. Any water pooling or leaking should be noted. Additionally, you should examine attics, storage rooms, and perimeter rooms for signs of water damage and/or visible mold. The EPA indicates that if mold contamination is contained in a small area, property owners should be able to handle the removal of the mold themselves. However, because there are no federal mold remediation standards, only guidelines, it's recommended that property owners should get professional assistance when inspecting the property. If the mold you can see is not near an air duct or is limited to the visible surface only, then a mold removal of this small size does not necessarily require a plan. But if you have any question about how extensive the contamination is, you should use a remediation contractor. Duraclean can be a remediation contractor. We can provide all services necessary to remedy any microbial contamination. Once the area has been verified as being contamination-free, Duraclean can oversee the reconstruction of the affected area, replacement of materials removed in the demolition, and restoration of surface finishes. Remember that no matter how large the area is, if there's water damage, you must dry out the affected area. You must then make repairs to correct the source of the water damage. A key member of the remediation team is the industrial hygienist, who will have the knowledge, the training, and the experience to inspect the property and create the remediation plan. After the inspection, a plan for mold remediation will be prepared and presented to the property owner. It's then up to the property owner to work with an experienced mold remediation contractor like Duraclean to eliminate the source of the moisture, eliminate the mold, and restore the property. Depending on the size of the contamination and its location, building operations may be either reduced or suspended during the cleanup. Steps necessary to eliminate the contamination are relatively straightforward. The property owner must allow access to the building by the mold remediation contractor and notify all occupants that the work will be performed. The mold remediation contractor will have to isolate the contamination by using containment techniques designed to keep the mold spores from spreading to other areas of the building. Duraclean, as your mold remediation contractor, will create a barrier between the contaminated area and the rest of the building. This containment area is usually built with heavy plastic walls, utilizing zipper openings for entrance. Once the site is contained, we'll then remove all of the contaminant material. This might include removing room contents, flooring materials, walls, and ceilings. We'll also filter the air to remove and contain airborne contaminants. Our work may include soda blasting, sanding, HEPA vacuuming, biowashing, and encapsulating if necessary. Depending on where the contamination is found, we might also have to clean the adjacent air ducts. The air in the contaminated site should be filtered continuously from the time mold is discovered until 48 hours after a successful post-remediation verification. The process for removing mold from your building is important, and you, as the property owner, must select the right professional to do the job. We believe Duraclean is the right professional for your mold remediation project. Another aspect that should not be overlooked is communications with the building's occupants. It's important that the property owner keep the lines of communications open. Be certain that everyone involved understands that the health and safety of building occupants are top priorities. You should demonstrate that the occupants' concerns are understood and taken seriously. Keep the occupants up to date regarding the remediation efforts. When selecting a remediation contractor, it's important that you determine the contractor's level of experience. Does the contractor have the training and experience necessary to complete the work safely and effectively? Duraclean has been dealing with cleanup for over 70 years, and specifically with mold remediation since 1999. You should check references of the contractor. Duraclean will be happy to provide you with references in your area. Your contractor should have a standard operating procedure for following the remediation plan designed by the industrial hygienist. Duraclean has an SOP, and you should review it. After the cleanup is complete, you should have a post-remediation verification to make certain that all the contamination has been removed. You should communicate the results of the test to the building's occupants so that they'll understand that you've done what was necessary to safeguard their health. And finally, be certain to inspect the property often to make sure that moisture does not reappear. Careful maintenance will help stop any further contamination. Well, that's what's involved. If you have a serious mold problem, you'll need the services of a trained industrial hygienist and an experienced mold remediation contractor. Because there are no published federal standards for mold remediation, select the contractor with experience and knowledge to solve your mold problems. Duraclean is just such a contractor. We have a proven record of success. Remember, if you have a question about mold remediation, Duraclean has the answer.